Wes Reynolds, for those who don't know, hits outrights all the time in golf at a ridiculous rate. Wes, for those who are listening and are unfamiliar with what you do golf-wise, can you sort of give the elevator pitch? Wes, I just want to start by saying you did not have Brian Campbell. You had Aldrich Potgieter, and I just want to say it's time for you to hang up betting golf. You obviously are not good at this at all.
Well, apparently not, because I had the number one guy in driving distance, that being Aldrich Potgieter. He is number one on the PGA Tour for driving distance. And guess where Brian Campbell was heading into last week? Number 182 out of 182 in driving distance. And you're playing a par 5 at 18, they play it over and over again, which I hate. That's a pet peeve of mine in the playoff. It's like play different holes every single hole so that you don't go on forever. But Aldrich Potgieter, look, had it right there, 70-1. He was the amateur champion. That basically it's like the Open Championship, but for amateur. So essentially the British Amateur won the British Amateur 2 years ago at 17 years old. So he's got the pedigree. He's a 20-year-old kid that leads the PGA Tour in driving distance. His first year on the tour. So he shoots 61 on Friday. You're thinking, okay, 4-shot lead going into the weekend. It goes down to 1. And then all of a sudden he's tied with Brian Campbell. Brian Campbell, by the way, a journeyman, 31 years old, so not an old man by any stretch, but has been grinding on the Korn Ferry Tour. Got his card originally on the PGA Tour in 2017 and then couldn't keep it and has been on the Korn Ferry Tour ever since, trying to get back on the PGA Tour. He finally does. He never had a top 10 finish in a PGA Tour event and finally got back out on the tour. And gets a win, though. So, something for perseverance, but got pretty unlucky yesterday with that bounce off the trees on the second playoff hole on 18 for Potgieter to lose, but also got lucky earlier this year with Nick Taylor winning the Sony Open. So 1-1 in playoffs, I'll take it.
That's very honest. That's very honest, honest assessment right there.
The Brian Campbell stuff, it is, like, obviously it sucked because Wes had a bet going. I was rooting for him. But when these stories happen, Wes, it is still cool. Sorry, it's one of those cheesy sports moments where you're like, this dude has been grinding away in the depths of golf that we never talk about, we never see, we never hear about how much they have to pay out of their own pocket to make sure they get to one location to go play another. Cool to see stories like that, even if it does take a tree to get lucky. But 5 out of 8 outrights would have sounded a lot cooler for the long shots crew, but now we're 4 out of 8. 4 out of 8 for the season.
God, you guys suck at this.
Yeah, I mean, Wes has 3 of those 4. Should be noted.
Well, also what you're saying is it doesn't, I'm just thinking the tennis equivalent. That doesn't happen in tennis, right? Like Emma Raducanu won the U.S. Open as a quali. That has never happened before, has never happened since. Who knows if it'll ever happen again. And I guess Eagle winning the French Open kind of out of nowhere to those who weren't listening to this show back in 2020. But other than that, you can't really think of something, equivalent. No one comes from out of nowhere, really, to win. Certainly not a major, but even a tournament, it rarely happens. Wes, for those who are listening on Sirius XM 158 and are unfamiliar with what you do golf-wise, can you sort of give the elevator pitch? Because Wes Reynolds, for those who don't know, hits outrights all the time in golf at a ridiculous rate. What is your alchemy? What is your handicapping alchemy? How would you describe it?
Well, Gil, usually what I do, and I end up, depending on the size of the field, if it's 70 players in a signature event, then I'm not going to play. I'll play maybe 4 outrights or 5 outrights or something like that. But generally, on average, it ends up being somewhere between like 6 to 8. I had more this week because it was I thought a bomb heavy event where it wasn't going to be chalk winning this event, and because it wasn't a signature event with really a lot of star power at the top. But usually what I do, I go through kind of the course history when I'm doing my write-up for VSiN.com. That usually comes out Tuesday morning / afternoon. And I look at various stats, what I think are going to be important on a given course that week. It might be iron play, so it might be strokes gained approach, or it might be proximity to the hole from 200 yards and out if you've got a lot of long irons like last week. Some weeks it's going to be driving distance. Some weeks it's going to be accuracy. Some weeks it's going to be scrambling and strokes gained around the green. So I put that in there, and then I look at that, and I also look at the market a little bit. Okay, what's a price that a player should be? Is he higher? Is he lower? Am I getting some value here? So that's how I build my card essentially. And then, look, the hope, you want to hit one every week, but the hope is to do at least what we did yesterday with Potgieter, where at least you get a guy in the mix and you can monetize that, so you can come out the other side with Brian Campbell, which my hand was kind of forced and I had to do at least going into 18 to at least get something out of it. But that's basically what I do every single week, looking at the field, looking at the market. I look obviously a little bit at course history. I look at recent form. If a guy's making a bunch of cuts, if a guy's got a bunch of top 20s or top 10s in a row, sometimes you could do that. And then looking at course form as well, the proverbial horse for courses. If you have a guy that always plays well at a certain event, he usually trends to play well continuously.
And when it comes to something like the Masters, which is, a little more than a month away still, it's a smaller pool. You can obviously have a bunch of throwouts too, right? Because there's a bunch of folks that still get to play in the Masters that have no real shot at winning it. Past Masters champions leap to mind. Your edge is lessened, I would imagine, in something like that.
Yeah, a little bit. And the Masters is one of the more predictive events. I know our friends over at Data Golf monitor that, and usually the Masters is up at or near the top in terms of what's a predictive event. When you look at guys that play well there tend to always play well there at Augusta National. And even when they make changes to the course, they know every nook and cranny of the place. So you can kind of look at a form line. If you got a little spreadsheet and say, okay, he was 10th 2 years ago, he was 15th 3 years ago. So always kind of in contention. And yeah, you're absolutely right. You can take almost half the field out because it's past champions, or it's a guy like a Brian Campbell, who's a total journeyman, who, by the way, winning the Mexico Open yesterday, qualifies for the Masters. Yeah. Well, it's like, well, Brian Campbell's not going to win the Masters. I hate to, poo-poo his seminal career moment yesterday, but he's not going to. It's just an honor for him to play. So you can eliminate, there's usually 85 to 90 players. You can eliminate half the field before you even start.
Do you have any Masters bets yet?
I do not as of yet. I'm kind of periodically going to try to add over the weeks and just time guys. Well, correction, I do have one. I did bet a little Ludwig Oberg before he won the Farmers Insurance Open. Not the greatest price at 18-1, but I figured I better have him, grab him now, because now he's going to get cut and he's going to be about probably 12 or 14-1 during Masters week.
All right, and your weekly picks, including this week, we first hear them on the Long Shots podcast. That's where you first release them?
Yep, tomorrow, and I'll also have the column up at VSiN.com for the Cognizant Classic down there in Palm Beach.
Ah, the Cognizant Classic.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.